Thanks for joining us today. We're here with some of our area experts for our annual Real Estate Magazine Roundtable on Retail. My name is Suzanne Benke. I'll have everybody introduce themselves. We're here for a great conversation about retail and what's going on in that area for the coming year, or what are some big trends or challenges as well. Ken Dar is with us also. He's a senior staff writer for the Business Record. So just enjoy the conversation and we'll cover the topic.
I'm Tim Leach, the Des Moines Partnership.
Collin Nelson, Cushman and Wakefield.
Aaron Hyde, JLL.
Richard Hurd, Hurd Real Estate.
Laura Rowley, I'm a retail consultant.
And I'm Kent Dar.
Ken, do you want to kick it off with the first
Well,
question?
I just start out and ask whether you see themes emerging for the upcoming year, that even a slight variation on what you've seen in previous years.
Physical retail is, really making a resurgence in a lot of areas, and probably doesn't get as much press as it should. We still have the weak retailers that are still closing stores, but the other side of it is that there's more stores opening, and there will be more openings in 19 than there are closures. That doesn't necessarily make the news, but it really, I think the underlying theme is, the strong retailers are doing quite well, and they will continue to do well, and they're opening new stores at a pretty rapid pace.
Yeah, I would agree with Richard. I think it's more of an evolution than the retail apocalypse that everybody has talked about, especially if you look at digital native retailers. They have the data that tells them where to open the stores, and there was a retail dive study that found digitally native brands are going to open 850 stores this year. So it's a burgeoning area of the market.
I think that's an interesting point, talking about some of these digital retailers that are going to start opening bricks and mortar stores. We've worked with a couple, and the analytics that they have, and they're able to heat map their online sales, and they're really able to dig in and make some informed decisions on what markets they should be in, where they should be in the market. So I think that's an interesting thing going on.
Well, ICS has actually done a study too that they found that their online presence gets, I think it's something like 47% greater traffic online after they open up their brick and mortar store.
There's a lot of brick and mortar stores, clicks to bricks, that are trending. Bonobos and Warby Parker, and some of those stores at Amazon. It's another one that's open brick and mortar stores. And I think, maybe to Richard's point, I think high quality real estate is going to be very, very competitive. That Seg A, B and C space still may have some struggles, as some of those mid-tier, lower-tier malls continue to struggle. But high quality real estate is going to be very competitive.
I'm going to ask a question about a mall here in Des Moines that's lost its two major anchors. Sears and Yonkers were in place when Merle Mall opened in 1959, and the city of Des Moines has approved 2 development agreements over the last decade to pump some tax increment revenues into that area. They're considering a 3rd agreement. I guess my question is, how important is the survival of a retail center like Merle to lifting the rest of its neighborhood by the bootstraps, possibly, or just to maintaining the vitality of the neighborhood? How significant it is to pump additional public monies into helping that mall deal with the kind of fickle nature of retail?
Going all jump back.
Since we have the listing on the Sears building out there, I'll take a shot at it, Ken. I think it's not a one-size-fits-all for that answer to that question. It depends on where your mall is located in the surrounding neighborhood. If we were talking about Merle in particular, that the answer is one thing. If you're talking about Valley West, the answer would be something else, because the conflict between the two is that Valley West is in a location that allows it to be developed into other types of uses that would probably not be successful at Merle Hay. And Merle Hay, also, keep in mind, is the only, I mean, it's in Des Moines primarily. There's a little piece in Urbandale, but it's primarily a Des Moines mall. Southridge is, you know, pretty much demalled already, so it's really the only mall left in Des Moines proper. And so I think it's important for that area of the city to see it survive. Now, it won't survive in the same fashion and configuration and services that it's been since 1959, because department stores are on the decline. And it's really not going to be a 4 department store mall. It may be a 1 or 2 department store. Sears could very easily become a medical use. It could become, you know, some other type of ancillary use that brings in traffic and provides services to the neighborhood, but not necessarily a pure retail play. And so if your question is really more specifically about Merle Hay, I think it's pretty important for that area of town. But it's going to be in a different, they'll provide different services than what we've traditionally seen out there going forward.
Tim, you?
Yeah, I think Richard's exactly right, but I think it's important to that neighborhood, and I think that it's such a, I mean, it's a large key piece of real estate, but it's important to the neighborhood. It's important to Urbandale. It's right there, and I think you got to keep those neighborhoods connected. We can't make that Merle Hay area an island, if you will. We're going to figure out how to connect it back to downtown and some of the successes we've had downtown, and keep it connected in the neighborhood so that, you know, it doesn't fall into disinvestment and more disinvestment, and then, you know, sooner or later you really got problems on your hands. But I do think it's going to look a lot different than it does it did in '59 and through the you know, its heyday.
Yeah, I hate to jump in and just agree with the two of these guys, but I think they're both exactly right. The surrounding neighborhood is a bit in transition, where you've got a lot of homeowners that have been in those homes for a long time and are starting to sell those homes off, and they're starting to transition into first-time buyers. So the demographics of the neighborhood, I think, are changing a bit, and it's in transition, and those first-time home buyers coming in are looking for those services and amenities. A Flick's Brew House is great for that neighborhood, and I think those guys are on it, and what they've done so far is great, but it's just continuing that transition.
I know the mall owner, Liz Holland, whose family developed that shopping center, said yesterday that it sort of has two futures. One is an area for shopping convenience, so it was represented when Target opened in 2005, changed the nature of the consumers going there. And two, as another destination, largely because of Flick's Brew House, where you can have a micro beer, eat dinner, and watching that latest Oscar nominated movie, I guess. But I guess I'm wondering, and she used a term that I've heard Richard use a lot, that you have to be on the go to work side of the street. There's Starbucks there, being an example. Does a mall exist with two heads, I guess? Kind of a two-headed beast out there? I mean, what types of retail lead to a better future for Merle Hay Mall?
Yeah, you're going to ask that from a perspective of the two types of services that you mentioned there. I mean, I think, and with many of these malls, if you're not in the affluent or touristy area, where you can attract, you know, the Tiffany's or the high-end retailers, I think a lot of the other malls do become more of a, they have your mainstay retailers, you have your TJX brands of the world are thriving, but then you also bring in a lot of these entertainment type retailers. And you're seeing these, you know, the laser tags, the movie theaters, the bowling alleys, you know, the pickleball, all the different kinds of entertainment uses come into these malls as service. And I think that's eventually what you'll see here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I deal with a lot of companies who are doing retail real estate in other cities, And the things that have been really hot are experiential. So companies like Top Golf and Pinstripes and Punch Bowl Social and Round One, you know, collectively those have more than 80 locations last year. So people, because of the online shopping, because Amazon is such an enormous entity in this changing landscape of retail, there has to be an experiential element. I just did a tour downtown of one of the new rental developments on Southwest 11th, and they had an enormous automated package area for residents who were ordering things, so that everything was combination. So you could order anything and get it right there without a person delivering it to you. So you're just going to see more and more and more of that in terms of people ordering staples. So when they go out, it's got to have an experiential element, or maybe there's a medical or healthcare element, or it's going to be that staples and convenience. I need it immediately. I'm not going to wait to order it online because it's going to take a day or two.
You spent a fair amount of time thinking about and then writing about Target. What was Target's secret?
Target had a couple of things going on. It had, from the very beginning, the founders had a clear vision that it was going to be the upscale discounter. I mean, in 1962, the Dayton brothers said, this is not going to be a straightforward competitor to Kmart or Walmart. We will be the upscale discounter. We're not going to discount because we're selling cheap goods at cheap prices. We're going to sell high quality goods at a value. So they had come out of the Dayton department store tradition and sort of continued that quality aspect. The other thing they've been really good at is creating their own brand by sort of cherry picking other brands. So it started with Michael Graves, the architect. He started doing sort of fancy housewares for them, and then one by one, they started doing all of these individual designers coming in and doing a line specifically for Target. So they were one of the first retailers to really get the notion that if you make something affordable and surprising, and you change your collections over all the time with something that's exclusive to the store. The other thing that they were really smart about is they did not make themselves into a mini mall. It was always sort of, you know, Target brings you Michael Graves, where if you looked at Kmart, I think it was Martha Stewart is at Kmart. So they were always subordinating their brand to the larger name, and Target doesn't do that. They made their brand front and center. And you know, you see retailers downtown like Raygun that are jumping on this trend of fast retail mixed with media. It's really interesting to me that a lot of media companies are doing retail. You know, companies like Ziff Davis, PC Magazine, they're making most of their money now in affiliate marketing. So they'll review a tech product, and then you'll click through and you'll buy that tech product and they'll get a commission. So media is doing retail, but then you see retail doing media. You know, so Raygun did a whole, they turned around a whole T-shirt line around the Elizabeth Warren comment, nevertheless, she persisted. By 9 a.m. that morning, they had shirts in the store with that slogan on, same day, and did tens of thousands of dollars of retail on that media theme. So, you know, I think speed is involved, I think media is involved, I think that having a really clear, authentic voice. Target had those things, and you see successful retailers today kind of building on that.
Hey, I've got a question though. If I just want to buy a pair of blue jeans, which, you know, I don't need right away. Maybe I do, but I don't think I.
You look fine.
Yeah, these are doing for now. Am I gonna, in time, am I just gonna be expected to buy those online and go shopping for shaving cream?
Well, I would say no, because you see some of the online retailers creating storefronts that don't have any inventory. You just go in there and they'll measure you and size you, and you pick the color. And some of them have mirrors where you can see what you're wearing. If you're wearing it in yellow, the mirror will show you what it looks like in brown or another color, and then they'll ship it to you. So you're definitely seeing that starting in retail, where it's an outpost, where it's just for fitting.
But still a digital component.
Still a digital component, right. Multi-channel or omni-channel is definitely the way the most successful retailers are going.
What about the Stitch Fixes of the world? And those are kind of disrupting retail in a different kind of way, because, you know, I love the idea of not having to go in and search through, you know, what is it, you have to try on 20, I think I read that somewhere a long time ago, you have to try, the average woman has to try on 24 pairs of jeans before she finds one that really fits her, and even then alterations are probably needed. So if I can send my, you know, measurements to some place like Stitch Fix, or that's the first one that's popping into mind, and they can send me products to try on and I just send them back, that's great, but it's cutting out those brick and mortar options, it's cutting out the malls. So are we feeling that here? Are we seeing those effects here of that, or?
In Des Moines itself,
Yeah.
are we seeing effects
Yeah.
of that? I mean, you're definitely seeing the impact of online shopping.
Sure.
You know, hitting traffic. But I would say that there's stores that are countering that by taking a consultant approach.
Okay.
Because even if, I've tried some of those subscription boxes, and I sent everything back. You know, it wasn't a good experience, there was nobody to talk to. You know, consumers still want to have an experience with a person on the other end who's catering to their tastes and needs and treating them, you know, like a person.
Some of the, you know, there's a
Versus
couple
bot.
of, there's a couple of men's apparel companies that started out online. Actually, you know, started out where a salesperson would go to a town, rent a meeting room at a hotel, and then invite people in. And if you like their material goods, they take your measurements and make you custom suits. EPH apparel out of Canada is one that now they're opening stores in Canada. You can't buy anything, but you can go get fitted by an expert, take a look at what kind of suit material or coat material you want, and then they make it and ship it. So I think you'll see some, and again, that's more clicks to bricks, but I think some of that experience, you've got an experienced person fitting you, measuring you, and then you get to see, and then if it doesn't fit when they send it to you, send it back, no questions asked, type of thing. So you'll see more services like that, I think. And I haven't seen any of those stores in the Des Moines area. I don't know, Richard, are there any clicks to bricks that have opened up in Des Moines?
I mean, not that I'm aware of. You know, you see Untuckit stores in Chicago,
Mhm.
for example, and, you know, Warby Parker, obviously, with eyewear that's open stores. I mean, there's not Des Moines, but in
Yeah.
other Midwestern cities that are larger, and it'll eventually get here. I mean, that's how it works, you know, it starts on the east and west coasts and works its way in, and we're kind of in the middle. So by the time it gets to us, we're kind of at the end of the cycle there, by the time it works its way to us, so.
I had a question for the panel. I'm interested in your views, because I'm a relative newcomer to Des Moines, and you're all, you know, very experienced with it. So Travel and Leisure surveys thousands of people every year and asks them for the list of America's favorite places. So, you know, the survey basically looks at what makes a town magnetic. So you look at, you know, geography is obviously big. There's a lot of towns near oceans and mountains and vineyards and that sort of thing. But a lot of them have a vibe that's reflected in the retail culture. So a place like Sedona, Arizona, you have that sort of new agey spiritual vibe, and then you'll see a lot of boutiques that reflect that. Williamsburg, Virginia, which is, you know, colonial magic, and they have, you know, they have rare bookshops, and they have heirloom seed shops, and then, you know, Cape May, New Jersey is a Victorian beach town that's full of furniture stores and antiques. So my question is, and Des Moines has a lot of the characteristics that were reflected in the survey that people love. You know, so friendly residents, a relaxing ambiance, you know, historic preservation, walkability. I'm talking about downtown. But I guess I want to ask you, how would you define Des Moines' vibe? You know, does the city have a specific vibe the way these other cities do, and does the retail culture reflect that? If you had to pick 3 adjectives that described Des Moines' vibe for you, what would they be?
I mean, to me, it's just a chill, laid-back Midwestern vibe. I don't know if that hits where you're going, but you know, just like a lot of places, our different pockets or different neighborhoods have this. Even downtown, look, even Western Gateway, the core and the East Village, they all have their own little feel to it. It's cool, but what Des Moines has done too is done a great job of marrying all those together. It's like we all, you know, everything gets along well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think certain pockets of Des Moines or different neighborhoods have a different feel to them. I mean, if you look at an East Village and a downtown versus an Ingersoll, those are similar but two distinct vibes. And then you look at a West Des Moines, which has a different vibe. But I think downtown and specifically the East Village is a great place to look for that. So a lot of local businesses like a Ray Gun or a locally grown or some of those that are kind of, I mean, you've got a Ray Gun that's satirical and funny, and you've got a locally grown that's just kind of casual, nicer clothing wear. So yeah, again, to your point, there's different pockets, but I think it all flows together nicely, and there's a little bit of something for everybody.
A few of us can go back when, the partnership first started, and one of our first campaigns was change your view. We had to change our own attitude. We had that Midwest, humble attitude, look down at your shoes when people are giving you compliments type of thing. And, it's surprising, and I think, our current CEO, Jay Byers, puts it really well. We really get above our weight class, and our rankings are there to prove it, but we constantly fight a battle of, do we sing enough about ourselves and what we do? And that's one of the goals of the partnership, is to let everybody know we're here and we have a great quality of life and a great place to come and do business. Our metrics for cost of living and the cost of doing business are still very, very good and very attractive, and I think our economic growth has been proof of that. But I think one of our taglines over the years was the surprising way. I mean, it surprises people sometimes how well Des Moines does.
Would Wholesome fit though? That's kind of what you're saying, really, a little bit, Tim. And the reason I ask is Ray Gun, you mentioned the Ray Gun campaign, seems to be beyond the box, but they're incredibly successful, wildly popular, seems very un-Des Moinesian to someone who
I would agree.
grew up around here.
I think they've just enough to be really popular. I don't know if they were the ones that come to, people have the window stickers that have the state of Iowa and says native, and I walk by one that says, instead of native, says captive. I mean, so that seems to be a Ray Gun type of thing that they can kind of make fun of us a little bit, and we all enjoy it. But I think Wholesome's probably a good word. It's Midwest. That's who we are. I think we should be proud of a lot of that. I think that's and it reflects in our economic success, our development success.
They use the term Des Moines. I think we're a lot less Des Moines than people think. I mean, we have these cool things. We have this Ray Gun. We have this great food. I mean, there's a lot more going on here. Every time I bring somebody comes to town on a tour, they're really blown away every single time. And I think a lot of people live here don't realize how nice it is and how good we have it. I go to these other markets, do these property tours, and you think it's just not. It's nice. And then in our downtown, for a small market, it's just great. It's married together. It's easy to get around. I mean, there's a lot of cities that are our size or just a tad bigger, and they don't have it together.
That's interesting. I mean, as somebody who lived on the East Coast for 20 years, I'd say, yeah, people definitely don't know how good they have it here. But I think of Des Moines as sort of friendly, affordable, livable. My husband and I call it the frictionless city. Like it's easy. You can get anywhere. I think about it as the place where there's primaries and the fabulous farmers market and the state fair. But I'm just wondering how that's reflected in the retail vibe. I just wonder if Des Moines in the future in some of these neighborhoods could have a sort of a cohesive theme to it. And then maybe that's something that sort of arises out of things like geography and culture in the city. You have like a town that has all Victorian will have those kinds of shops, or a town that has all colonial will have, will reflect that, because that's the kind of people they're drawing in. But I'm just wondering if you could bolster retail by communicating its vibe in a certain way. The other question I had is, what is the central social media hub for retail in Des Moines? I get a lot of, stuff will pop up on Facebook that there's a band at this store, or there's a, workshop at this store. But there doesn't seem, and I see a lot of stuff in the partnership. I see it on LinkedIn. I get the downtown email. And then there's a lot of entrepreneurs who've done individual sites around Des Moines that are sort of like, here's what's cool about Des Moines. But I'm wondering if there's a central social hub around the retail part of Des Moines. And where do you get your information about what's happening in retail aside from the business record?
I don't know that there is one hub. I'd say where I see a lot of content, I mean, you see it on Facebook, you see it on certainly Twitter and Instagram. I had kind of just a funny story that happened just the other day. Speaking of social media and retail advertising, how those two can work together. I was on Instagram when I saw a picture, and I touched the picture of this gentleman, and a button popped up for every piece of clothing that he's wearing. So I clicked on the button for his watch, and it took me to Casio's website. And I looked at the watch, I liked it, wasn't sure, it was a little bulkier than I'm used to. So at the bottom, there's a box that said, find a store near you. So I put my zip code in, and there's 3 stores around Des Moines that had it, so I went to the store, tried it on, and I liked it, and I bought it. Now that was a really seamless process, going from, and that's a really great example, I think, of how online and in-store can work together, and how a lot of, especially these clicks for people, are able to leverage that.
That's really cool.
You know, I think what you're saying, I don't know if there is, like, to go back to what you're saying, I don't know if there is one way or one channel. I think maybe it depends on what the product is or what you're buying.
Mhm.
And the first thing that comes to my mind is furniture, because a lot of folks here in town who make custom pieces for you, and it's all over Instagram. And or if you just say, hey, I like this, you can find them on Instagram, and they'll make it for you. You know, when it comes to bands or stuff like that, I sometimes you see Facebook notifications that I get. So it's coming at it from every angle.
And I'm not so sure that in retail there would be one central social media. Gen Z is about 11% Facebook, while boomers are about 25%. The millennials, you hear that they do most of their Instagram or Snapchat. So it depends on what audience you're after or what channel you would be using. It seems to me when those are the numbers, if your target is a boomer crowd, you're probably going to use Facebook. If it's a millennial crowd, probably Snapchat or Instagram is where it seems to be more popular with that audience.
Richard, I was going to ask you, and this kind of, I guess, backs up to Laura's question about what's our vibe, which I think is another way of asking, is there a retail that you would not pursue for one of your retail centers? Is there a type of retailer you just wouldn't pursue that maybe would be popular elsewhere because you just wouldn't see it as a fit?
I think there's plenty of them that we wouldn't pursue that are out there for various reasons.
And that may be viable, also not.
Well, they're viable, I mean, but there's, let's back up a step here. So what type of culture do we have? And the retail has to reflect the culture. It isn't the other way around. So the culture doesn't reflect the retail stores. The stores reflect the culture of the city. And so what we try to do is we try to bring retailers that enhance the experience of living here based upon the culture of the city. I mean, we're in 12 states, so what we have here may not be what we have in Las Vegas, for example, or in Phoenix. But the point is that you have to be cognizant of what actually is interesting, as Laura pointed out. I mean, take Nashville, for example. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Music. So you would have a retail environment that would be highly sensitive to the music industry, especially country music, right? If you were there, you might have Gibson guitars, and you might have clothing that reflects that lifestyle. We probably wouldn't be successful with that here just because we don't have the demand for it. I mean, that's an example of geography playing a role in how you select the retailers that you would work with and how they would select our market also.
To touch on that as well, I think you need to really look at each company in specific. I think the example I would go to is a department store. I think a lot of people would say I wouldn't touch a department store right now. But here in Des Moines, maybe I wouldn't take a Sears or a JCPenney, but I would take a Von Maur, which is a department store. So I think you have to look at each company individually and how they fit into your neighborhood and your market, and really take a look at it, try to stay away from industry generalizations.
Mention was made at one of our other roundtables about the changing nature of Valley West Mall. And Tim, I think you mentioned it earlier, and Richard. How do you see that area evolving? A Minneapolis development company spent a lot of money, $35,000 per unit, I think, rehabbing an old rundown apartment community near Valley West Mall, anticipating a coming boom of professionals and retailers, young professionals and the like. And yet you have Valley West Mall that is struggling by anyone's measure. And there's another example of a big retailer that's struggling, yet it's also in a neighborhood that the people who know a lot more about this than I do senses on the verge of recovering in some way. What role does retail play in that?
Well, I go back to what Richard kind of opened up with when Merle Hay. It's going to look a little different. It's going to have to evolve with the neighborhood around it. But I still, that area is pretty vibrant. There's a lot of traffic out there. There's a lot of cars in that lot. And I know Vaughn Larson mentioned that. And, it drives a lot of traffic. Is it going to go through some growing pains when losing the big boxes? Probably. Are they going to look the same? Are there going to be different services? Are there healthcare or fitness or new things on the horizons, new services people are looking for? But I think all malls in that particular category, and not to equate them exactly on a real estate basis, but I think they have to evolve with the changing times. So.
What would fit in a vacant Yonkers at Valley West Mall that wouldn't fit in a vacant Yonkers at Merle Hay?
Well, office. I mean, you have to realize that Valley West has a lot of attributes that Merle Hay doesn't have, and Merle Hay has a lot of attributes that Valley West doesn't have. They're just totally different puzzles. And if you own one or the other, your approach would be totally different as to where to go in 2019, where we sit today. First of all, Des Moines had 4 malls. We're probably 1.5 or 2 mall city in terms of population in today's world. So what does that mean? There's only 2 chairs and there's 4 malls. 2 malls probably don't survive in a mall configuration. Southridge is already pretty much converted to a strip center. So that one's off the table. And the problem Valley West has is it's just, frankly, physically too close to Jordan Creek. Jordan Creek is the premier mall. It will be the premier mall. It will do just fine because we need a good, solid mall. There's virtually no vacancy in the corridor. It's where every retailer wants to be that comes to town. And so if you look at it from that perspective, Merle Hay has a benefit because it is physically further away from Jordan Creek than Valley West. The other thing that Merle Hay has going for it is one of the other big growth areas of the metro is Ankeny. Merle Hay is north, and it gets it closer to Ankeny, and there's an awful lot of population growth in Ankeny that needs to be served. So, really what it boils down to is that Valley West is going to go through, I believe, a much more severe transformation than Merle Hay, because there's just not enough retail to go around. Once Von Maur leaves, then you've got a 1-anchor mall, which who knows if pennies will even stay. So it just needs to be repositioned. But the good news for Valley West is it's right on I-235. It's great real estate. you're at the beginning of the office corridor. I mean, Yonkers could be fairly easily converted into office. It's got a big parking field. It's got great access. And, you know, the rest of it, I mean, there's all kinds of things that can be done from, you know, pinstripes, you know, all types of experiential real retail to service retail to, you know, residential. I mean, there'll probably be some residential on that site before it's over. You're looking at me like you have questions, Kent.
No, I was looking at Laura as though I thought she had a question.
Sounds like
Are there any sleeper retail areas left? Has Johnston experienced its full potential as for retail? Pleasant Hill,
What about even Wakefield?
Norwalk.
Hickman Road is just bubbling up with all kinds of projects. Is that an area where retail could emerge? Sorry to interrupt you, Kent.
I jump in and say Johnson, we've got a listing at 54th and 86th Street. We've seen some really good activity from restaurant users. I really like that neighborhood because it's an established neighborhood. It's got a lot of rooftops. You've got some good, solid employers with DuPont Pioneer. You've got a growing daytime population with the addition of John Deere going there and now the addition of Pella. And it's a quarter that I think the perception there is that it's been underserved by specifically restaurants and coffee users and things of that nature. So that's one that I think we're excited about right now.
Okay, you're talking from a more big box or a big retail perspective.
Well, I'll even narrow that down a little bit more. I recall when Johnston's economic development director came to town, he made a comment that there are a lot of good places to eat in Johnston. It's a great city to live in. He said, I don't think I can drive to buy a TV in this town. And I don't know whether that requires a big box or I'm still stuck in, you know, small TV shops. But
Well, you're talking about corridors and nodes, I think. Collin's talking about A1 a corner. And those are different things. There's no doubt that Waukee is like the next retail frontier. I mean, it just is. It's where everything's moving. It will have all those services in time. Johnston, with all due respect, I don't believe will ever get that. Again, Johnston has the problem that it's in between Des Moines and Ankeny is the next retail corridor. So you've got Jordan Creek, you've got Merle Hay if Liz handles it right on the conversion. You've got Ankeny, and you've got Waukee, and then, you know, like the regional stuff out in Altoona. And those are really kind of the nodes that have the strength for retail.
I guess to piggyback on that, yeah, the Johnsons of the world. I think they'll do fine at the strip retail. You're not going to get the big box retail. I mean, it's just a tweener site. These guys, they're getting more selective. They have to be more selective. They can only do so many stores, especially e-commerce and whatnot. So when you're that close to Merle Hay, you just can't. I don't see how you can do it. You know, up in Grimes, you do have, you know, I think you'll see your grocer go in. You got your Menards and your Walmart, and maybe a few other small frames, I'll call it, but not like I don't foresee like a TJX necessarily going up there. And if it is, it's a long way down, I would think, in the future, because it's just too close to everything else.
For the panel, aside from the issue of the demise of malls, what do you think are the biggest pain points for retailers, or what are you hearing them say are their biggest pain points in 2019?
Well, in Des Moines, it's hiring people to work. I mean, and I primarily upset from a food industry standpoint. I mean, I have a lot of guys who are trying to open up shops, and they're having a heck of a time finding people that they can rely on to work in the stores.
In restaurants?
Yeah.
Okay. Tim, are you hearing anything about downtown?
You know, I think when regional guys talk about big stores and big brand names, I think the challenge, you know, they have the capacity for data and how to use it, and I think that's, you know, when you get for an East Village, for example, a lot of sole proprietors that maybe don't have that big of an engine that they can access or analyze. So we've been taking a look at some of those things and how we may be able to help that neighborhood. I think the biggest thing that we can do as a partnership and Downtown Community Alliance is continue to make placemaking. If experiential is what people want, and East Village does have some good experience, we have to make sure we continue on the clean, safe, beautiful, make places. There might be some movement afoot on that market district for some public spaces, some parks, perhaps some pocket parks that serve the playground for the kids as our neighborhoods start to mature. Do we want to keep these people downtown as they start families attract more? Schools are a big part of it. Where are our kids going to go to school? So that makes that neighborhood development program even more important, because we've got to connect our downtown to the near neighborhoods, prop them up, and I think schools is a big part of our culture here. So, but I think placemaking, continuing to make sure that you're helping our small retailers with good, clean streets and a good place for experience to come down and shop. I think I believe that's our hugest role.
I want to know what kind of experiences I should expect when I go shopping. Really, I don't shop that much. I want to know what experiential retail is all about.
As much as digital has increased in popularity, there's still that experience. Laura talked about, you can stand in front of a mirror and see different colors of clothes. That's an augmented reality type of thing, where you put on the glasses and you can see what's going on. The other experience is just having that consultant, somebody's there to help you. And part of your experience is how comfortable are the surroundings and that type of thing. So people like to shop where they feel comfortable, or they feel wanted. Where there might be their favorite place for coffee next door, or a place to have a craft brew in the neighborhood, like East Village, that type of thing. So to me, it's the experience is how can I make you comfortable? How can I make you want to come down and experience and do some door-to-door type shopping?
If I go bouldering in the East Village, am I going to want to shop in the East Village then? Is that the idea?
That's where we hope, yeah.
Well, I mean, the other piece I would say is especially for millennials, self-expression is a huge part of their shopping experience. So eventually you're going to see stores that allow customers to co-design products. I mean, you see that in the big cities, and like if you go into a Tesla showroom, you are designing your car on an interactive wall, everything from the shape to the colors to, the features. People will be able to co-design products in real time on 3D printers in some shops. But it's also sort of the self-expression kind of tribalism. People want, especially in the age of cell phones, and you never have a conversation with anybody now, everybody's looking down at their phones and they're texting each other. It's going to be stores that create experiences that have meaning related to community values. So, I think eventually the data will be so good that you'll find pockets where, hey, guess what, 40% of this neighborhood is vegan. So you're going to have a vegan center that pops up, and maybe it will have a vegan restaurant, and it'll have community lectures, and it'll have bookstores on that theme, and it'll have, it'll have an interactive pop-up where there's a bunch of vegan online stores that have examples of, they'll have a piece of their wares in a pop-up store, and there'll be a kiosk where you can order that item, similar to what you talked about with your watch. So I think as the data and analytics get better and better and better about who people are, the retail will reflect their values. So you'll have experiences, that'll reflect the kind of music you like, or the kind of books you read, or, you'll be able to sort of find your people through the element of retail.
Let's say what changes in technology are going to affect my brick and mortar shopping experience?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind, I don't know if it's your shopping experience, but I hear rumblings or people, preparing for the future is, if we have these driverless cars, how does that change parking? People what the requirements are for parking fields. You know, I mean, that seems to me way out there, but I don't know. Richard, I don't know if you get feedback on any of that stuff. You work in these other markets to play in. But that's the first thing that pops in my mind, or how, you know, the transportation is going to change.
The other piece I would say is transactions are going to become cashless. I mean, you're already seeing these stores in Seattle where you have a chip on your phone and there's nobody working there for the convenience aspect. You know, so you'll see cashless transactions. The other thing is stores will have IT infrastructure that recognizes who you are in real time and maybe looks at your refrigerator and says you're out of eggs and tells you. So it's that kind of creepy.
Well, it
data
makes me
tracking.
not, it makes me ask the question, why am I going to the store?
Right.
I can't talk to the clerk, I can't talk to the salesperson, I'm imprinted some way, whether it's on my phone or whatever, and they know what I walked in with, what I'm walking out with. Why am I going in there?
Well, I mean, the other piece of technology would be something like augmented reality, where you want to buy a couch, you go into Homemakers and you want to buy a couch for your living room, you'd be able to, you know, have a way to see how that, put on augmented reality headset and see how that couch actually looks in your living room. So it'll bring the two together, that, you know, that decision making will be easier because of augmented reality technologies. So, you know, that's something that I definitely would shop for. It's furniture. It's something I have bought online in the past but had not good experiences with. So, you know, it's sort of those big ticket items, the personal items that need to fit. Technology is going to wrap around all of those things. So they'll find what you like and what's a fit for you personally.
To your question, Ken, I think that's where some of these other experiential type retailers fit in, like if it's Brew House or Pinstripes, is it's a reason to go to the mall. And then if we ever get to a point where there aren't cashiers or there aren't salespeople, I've got a reason to go. It's something fun to do with my friends, and I can grab what I need on the way out, because I'm already there. So I think that's kind of how some of those fit in as traffic drivers to these centers.
I want to back up a second too, because I don't want to get through this hour without asking about downtown. What do you think? And Richard, obviously you develop retail along Ingersoll. You thinking any differently about what occurs west of the river so far as retail?
I think when we had our focus groups, and it was pretty clear. We have really good neighborhoods, and I think it was Jake Christensen pointed out. We have a tendency to build lily pads, and we're not connecting them. So, I think we need to concentrate on make sure we connect these neighborhoods. So we and some of that will happen naturally. You think about the underpass under Fluor Drive and what's going on in Gray Station, that Hubble development. It will start to connect that south area to downtown. I think having that building that Big Lars was in under development from the Christensen development gets that east side closer to the Port District. Certainly, we have to have certainly an ounce or a pound of patience with Walnut Street as we take a look at especially when that east building comes up. But I'm talking about connections to make sure our neighborhoods are not isolated. And then the other thing that came out strong and clear is that not every neighborhood from a retail perspective can be the East Village, nor should it be. I think the West End, for example, West End Salvages, and you've got the No-J Jazz Club, and you've got some other unique shops that can start to take on an identity of its own. And Gray Station gets closer to that. And then you talk about where the arena is and the new hotel. There's some good real estate up there that's in pretty savvy development hands, and I think you might see some more entertainment type retail. Entertainment being or sports themed or entertainment themed type things, and I think having and see another run at the NC2A tournament's going to kind of start to take some shape up in that particular area. But again, it seems like it's not fully connected, so some of those things will happen naturally. And we've had some discussions with the city, saying, where do we need to make connections? And maybe that's where we target some of those incentive dollars to help the developers develop those areas. So,
How would you make those connections? Sorry to interrupt you. How would you make those connections? This has been like your buzzword.
yeah.
Connections.
Well, if you look at what makes East Village, the East Villages, you got door to door. I don't think that's what makes a Valley, or excuse me, a Jordan Creek pipe. There's door to door, as Richard pointed out. There's no vacancy in those corridors, and people can move. But when you have big, missing teeth, so to speak, I think that's been one, Walnut Street's issue over the years. Is it's just there's void, and so it doesn't seem, it's just not comfortable when you can't go door to door. So to make those connections, I think you got to get these neighborhoods closer together so it doesn't seem like it's miles and miles away. And I first started with the partnership there, and you could go down Walnut Street to the west in the Crane Building or where XL, it seemed like it was miles and miles away. Now that Nationwide is built and you got the Jazz Club and those things, it doesn't seem like it's that far, and people will actually walk and get to those areas. So imagine how much isolated Meredith was from the tour before the sculpture park. So it's that type of connect. Make sure it's comfortable. It doesn't seem like there's some huge voids. And we do have the river to deal with, but I think you can get the neighborhood to the east as far west as we can with the market district. And I think you got some of the connections on top.
Tim, has the partnership ever thought about doing like some kind of transportation or recreational amenity, or maybe it has, that connects the districts? Because I'm thinking of Indianapolis, how they built the cultural trail. Indianapolis had been a huge trolley car town, and then they put the highway in, and it basically tore apart all these historic neighborhoods with really neat personalities had arisen because of where the trolley car line had gone. And then they got, they raised the money to do the cultural trail, which is a bike trail connecting all those districts. And now they've got 1 million people a year on it, and it's resulted in $1 billion in economic activity. New condominiums that are on there, new restaurants that are on there, and some of that is also, some of the restaurants especially are sort of being helped by city funds and by individual developer funds, but it created this tissue that connected all those historic districts and gave people a reason to go from one to the other.
That's a really good question, and Connect Downtown looks at a lot of those things. I mean, we started, assuming a decade ago, with the D line, the free shuttle that goes east to west on a continuous loop. But when you talk about Connect Downtown, you have to start taking a look at making Locust Street two-way and Grand two-way, and narrowing things down and making it more walkable, so it's safer. That plan is underway, and I think that's one of the things where you're going to see more walkable streets and open these things back up to pedestrians and bicycles. And we do have a wonderful trail system, and I think this downtown's no exception. The bike lanes are out there. We just got to get rid of some of these one-ways and start implementing that plan of Connect Downtown.
I think we have a few minutes left. We don't want to leave any stone unturned here. Is there anything we haven't talked about that we should have touched on? We'll start with Tim and move my direction.
I think we've covered an awful lot of ground, but I think in 2019 you're going to see more of the same. More on the channel, some changes coming. The restaurants, with delivery. It's kind of interesting to note that McDonald's started with like 200 test sites. Now they got 5,000 where they actually deliver. You got Uber Eats and some of those that have propped up. And I think the subscription, I don't think we talked so much about that, but that has had huge growth online subscriptions. Like somebody mentioned getting the clothes in the box. I just got one sent to me yesterday. It was one for golfers, where they'll match your jacket, your shorts, and your golf shirt, and you can pick if you want wild colors or conservative colors, and they'll send one to you a month, and it's you have to opt out. So once they get you, they probably get you 3 months before you say I got enough golf shirts. And so you'll just see more and more as they figure out what it is people want online. And then I think some of these malls, or at least the high quality real estate malls, have an opportunity for some of that comeback. Some stores that we thought were down and out are making comebacks, and they might be stores that have possibility to fill some vacant spaces.
One thing I think I'm interested to watch, and I think we touched on it lightly in a couple different ways, is Amazon. Obviously, that's in everybody's mind as an online retailer. But with their acquisition of Whole Foods, they've entered the physical retail market. And now with their Amazon Go stores, I think they're up to a couple now in Seattle and Chicago. But there's the Bloomberg report the other day that said they might be up to 2,000 stores by 2021. If they are to hit that growth, which is pretty aggressive, how does that affect the real estate market, and when do they come to a central Iowa? And I think, again, Tim kind of touched on it, and Richard touched on it at the beginning, we're finally starting to see the effects of some stuff that we've been talking about for a long time, which is the Bon-Ton liquidation and the Toys R Us liquidation, and some Sears closures. And with all these retailers that are doing great, and all this real estate up for grabs, who takes it, how does this fill in, and how does each unique asset and neighborhood reposition these assets, and what do they look like going forward?
I think what I would say is for 2019, I think we're going to see a lot more entertainment-type users into the marketplace, and really try and take advantage of these big boxes that have gone out. And I think we'll also see retailers, they start to offer more exclusive offers to try and draw you in for the experience. Say, hey, I'm only selling you 1,000 watt, this type of watch, or this kind of suit kind of deal. I think we'll see more of that. And despite the unemployment, we're still going to see the restaurants grow, and we got a lot of cool ones coming.
Well, first of all, I think, Des Moines as a place to live and just a stable environment is probably one of the best places in the country to raise a family, operate a business, to live. It's, as Laura pointed out, it's very easy to live here. When you travel and go to bigger cities, Des Moines is very manageable. It's easy to live here. That being said, when on the retail side, I just wonder when we're going to finally get some type of publicity, and I know that it's not in the interest of a lot of the companies that are connected, but online shopping is terribly environmentally insensitive, and we hear nothing about it. But the putting it on an airplane and flying it from LA to Memphis, and from Memphis to Des Moines, and then you put it on a brown truck that's diesel powered with one guy driving one package to everybody's house, is not an environmentally wise way to deliver goods to the people. And stores are much more efficient. We're all here. We all went to work today. We all got in a car and drove to work. And it's much more efficient to stop and pick up what you need on your way to or from work from a store than it is to go through that process. There's obviously a glut of packaging now in our country from all the cardboard. And then every time, as Tim or somebody pointed out, every time you order something, it's not the right size, and you repeat the process all over again.
Right.
So at some point, I would like to think, and I know that the interests of the technology companies and Amazon are aligned in a lot of ways, but and they claim that they're environmentally progressive, right? I'd like to think at some point there would be some, at least, conversation about how environmentally impactful online shopping is, because it's going on millions of times a day in our country. You got this, it's just happening in you know, if there was a study on the environmental impact of that, I think it would be shocking.
That's a great
So-
point.
So there you have it, Ken.
I guess my
Stick that in
final,
your pipe and smoke it.
I've been mulling this one over for a while, actually, Richard.
all right, I'm going to end on an optimistic note. I'm very bullish on Des Moines, and I'm bullish on Des Moines retail, and part of it, I'm in the middle of writing a book with the tentative title, Live in a Flyover City, Get Out of the Coast and Get a Life, because that's kind of what my husband and I did 5 years ago. We were living 60 miles outside Manhattan, but our commute was an hour and a half each way. And, you know, when I moved to Des Moines, it was such a 180 in lifestyle that I thought, is it only me? And I started to do some research, and there are all of these enormous economic, structural, social, and cultural factors that are hitting millennials. Everything from housing prices and property taxes to student loan debt to lower wages, and at the same time, you have these cities in the middle, like Des Moines and Columbus and Omaha and Kansas City, that are rising culturally and offering all the good bones that millennials who are starting to have children want. Things like awesome schools and easy commutes and parks and recreation that's accessible. So I think you're going to continue to see people come to places like Des Moines, and ultimately that's what makes retail rise, right, is the population growth. Because the selling points of Des Moines are the quality of life is phenomenal, and particularly in contrast to the quality of life in places like superstar cities like New York and San Francisco and Washington, D.C. and L.A. It's so hard to live there as a young family with children. It's so expensive. It's so logistically difficult that I think the selling point of Des Moines, you know, and the partnership has done a phenomenal job of underscoring that it's a great place to live and have a family. And I think, you know, the city emphasizing that, continuing to emphasize that, will lead to population growth that leads to the continued rise of retail.
Great. Thank you all.